Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back into another episode of the Zig Zone, Falcon Media Sports Network's flagship sports show where we talk everything going on in BG Athletics. I'm your host, Holden Ruck, joined by the Falcon Media Sports Network's Lucas Kleinmeyer, Ben Korak, and Henry Costco in studio. And today we're joined by a very, very special guest, BGSU Director of Athletics, Derek Vandermeer. How are you today?
Great. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Super happy to have you here because we've got, I would say, the biggest event of the year for Bowling Green Athletics coming up just next week, and that is the Ziggy Awards, the end of the year athletic awards for the 2024 athletic season. And before we get more into that, Derek, I just want to talk to you a little bit about, Bowling Green itself. Tell me, you came from the University of Arizona most recently. Tell me about, your first impressions getting to Bowling Green.
Well, I have some context before Arizona, clearly being a student athlete in this conference and coming down here for many competitions and competing in Doy Perry Stadium during my career as well, and watching many games in the stadium afterwards. This is a very special community. There's something that has been here long before I got here, long before President Rogers has got here. It's a sense of strong community, strong identity. I think there's been great coaches as a part of the history of Bowling Green, from Jerry York and Urban Meyer and Dave Clausen. And we can go around, you have Robin Freilich, who goes on to Michigan State. Kurt Miller. The list goes on and on of these amazing human beings. And, I've gotten to know every one of them, which is an amazing opportunity for me to hear from them what makes Bowling Green special throughout my tenure. And when you talk to these individuals, there's the same narrative, that this is a community that rallies around its brand, its identity, each other, and really, I think, really supports and runs to help ensure our teams and our programs are successful and our students are successful on campus. And that's something that is unique. And people that have been here appreciate and value it. When they leave, they say, you can hear Urban Meyer will say one of his most amazing experiences he had as a coach was right here in Bowling Green. And it's the reason, it's a sense of purpose, a family, a priority. The value system that drives this place hasn't changed. It's been that way for well before any of us, and it'll continue to be that way as long as we have individuals that uphold those traditions and values and people that continue to embrace what has made us great.
And how do you think you've, helped develop further and embrace that in your time at Bowling Green?
I think the biggest mistake that coaches make and athletic directors make is when they come into a place that they think that they have to define the place around who they are. And, you don't have to do that. You don't have to tear down the past. You don't have to build statues to yourself. What you do is you find what makes a place great and you amplify that and get out of the way and don't screw it up. That's really what it boils down to, is that, in a highly competitive environment in college sports, the most important thing a place can find is has a strong connection with its value system and its brands. Because when you start to be inauthentic to who and what you are, you fail. And you have to build on your greatest strengths. There's something unique about this place in the sense of where we recruit our students from. I think roughly 80% of our students are from in-state. And so Ohio is important to who and what we are. When we win, we generally have Ohio students that are the core. It could be the emotional core, it could be the value core of the team, but the base is built on Ohio. And then you supplement, just like we do with our recruitment of our general students. We go out, and other individuals that want to have the opportunity to come in and be a part of a great aviation program or an engineering program or nursing programs, they come in and they adopt what that value system is. But the governor on who and what we are the students that come from Ohio that truly value this experience, and they value what Bowling Green means as part of their educational experience.
Yeah, it feels like student experience is a big thing. President Rogers mentions that a lot. I think the athletic department in general does a very good job of marketing. Can you talk a little bit about the marketing that you do? I know myself as a fan, I'm on the receiving end of a lot of that. So
yeah, well, I think one of the things that I've always, I kind of, in my past life, I was a vice president for a university in Tennessee, and one of my oversights was marketing, communication, and brand development, and which directly impacted, enrollment-driven sort of marketing strategies. And one of the things that I'm, so the social media aspect of it, the multi-layered communication strategies, the reinforcement marketing, Making sure that everything you're doing is authentic to your brand and your identity, making sure there's persistence in that, the discipline of it. Discipline is not so much, marketing is not so much about creativity. It's about discipline. It's about beating that drum over and over and over and over again, because most people, when they get introduced to some sort of concept or identity of marketing, it can't be this, we see it one time and then it doesn't connect with who and what we are. So the most important thing when we're looking at what we're doing in athletics is it gets back to coming in and really understanding what is the strongest part of our institutional identity right now. President Rogers has, reinforced that beating of the drum of student experience. It's not something. It's not a marketing term. It's being used as such. It's more of a value set. It's more of what and who we are. We're just making sure everybody understands that and reinforcing that, because sometimes when you lead with that and you beat that drum, it also changes behavior. So the thing that you most admire about what you are is the thing that you should talk about over and over and over and over and over again, because it reinforces it and helps develop it and amplify it. So there's this relationship between sort of that marketing strategy and authentic identity, and how that helps to feed and grow that authentic identity, and authentic identity helps to drive marketing strategy. So those components work in this wonderful symbiotic relationship. All we're trying to do is plug into that. And when I look around this campus, Falcon Sports Media, another great example. Great students. When I walked in, felt that there wasn't a strong relationship with athletics. Fine. How do we fix that? Because, you're an arm of our narrative. You're the arm of our communication and storytelling. And if we need to do more of that, there needs to be better storytelling. We feel like we've plenty of room to grow in this space and area. We can't solve this in a bubble. If you look at our marketing department, and we have one marketing director, and we have about 20 different students from all different programs on this campus that help drive the narrative. Ensuring that there's symmetry in the narrative building, ensuring that there's a relationship to what we're trying to achieve each and every day is really part of that tinkering with that strategy. But the strategy has to be aligned with what the institution values first and foremost, because it's the amplification of that message that's critical.
Derek, you mentioned how you've seen Falcon Media grow too, and the partnership that we've built with BJC Athletics, and it's been just transformative here, and it's been nothing but positive and amazing. For you, how have you seen BJC Athletics as a whole grow? What are some of the specific other groups that you've seen grow as well? I mean, for example, the Falcon Fanatics have been just incredible here the past 3 years I've been on campus.
Well, there's a lot of pieces to that question, and I'll say this is that, one, is there a simple vision that everybody clearly understands as the objective and goal? The cornerstone of our strategic plan is the student experience. We don't talk about winning. In my meetings, I have staff meetings, I have coach meetings. Winning is not the outcome that we're striving for. It's the result of what we're striving for is the daily commitment to the discipline of doing things the right way, making sure that we feed that campus responsibility of taking care of that student experience, making sure that we're recruiting great coaches that are great leaders and mentors, and that they buy into the responsibility of mentorship, making sure that they're not looking just at their programmatic growth, that they're looking across left and right and saying, how can I help? How can football help golf grow? How can a head football coach help women's basketball be better? That relationship of feeding each other all the time and truly being about a community that's trying to make itself better is really important to me. I read a book, it was talking about a great artist through history, and it talked about how great artists generally, you think about them as sort of like these introverts that lived in the middle of nowhere that had no influences, and they became great artists. Great artists have always lived in really robust art communities, and what they're doing is they generally surround themselves by other great artists, and those communities are incubators for ideas, for skill development, for mastering their artistry. Musicians do the same thing. I was a musician, and I'm saying being around other great musicians and you're watching them doing something really technically that is really impressive. You said, how do you do that? You learn from other people. I mean, the greatest minds talk about tech giants. I mean, Steve Jobs. They didn't create these things in these isolated bubbles. They surrounded themselves with other people that fed the things that they were passionate about. So, and I view athletics as the greatest incubator of how do we create greatness, is that we have to learn from each other. We have to watch. Our coaches watch what other coaches are doing. Like, Dennis Williams right now, talk about, second recruiting class in the entire country right now in hockey. But he's looking at how to build completely different in a time that's radically changing. The recruits are radically changing. Our men's basketball coach, who I think is a great coach, fundamentally he is highly respected nationally. We've got to do a better job of how we recruit and how do we retain a roster. And in a very difficult time. And what we're, Todd and I were talking this morning, okay, here's the plan. Here's what we're going to do. Here's the strategy. Here's how we're going to change these things. Because I believe we have a great coach. I believe that I've got to do a better job, my job to help him win. And it's like Todd and I were talking about, today is a time where it's not just about what happens on the court. It's what we're doing behind the scenes to make sure we retain and grow a roster that is critical to our success moving forward. That incubation of learning and growing from each other, but you've got to have great people that want to learn and grow. They all want to be masters. And so when you go out to recruit, that's what hire coaches, I'm looking for individuals that have that mindset of learning and growth. That's why Eddie George fits that perfectly.
Yeah.
It's like Eddie George is, I always say, I don't want to hire someone that if the world ended tomorrow and in coaching, that they felt that that's the only thing that they could do. I like to hire people that say coaching is only one part of who they and what they are. It's all these other dimensionalities of being an entrepreneur, being a business person, knowing how to grow relationships and people. And that, those people that when you have conversations with them and their identities are this huge aperture of who and what they are as people, those are the people you surround yourself with, because they're looking across and trying to learn and grow from everybody else around them. And when you see that personality in individuals, those are the things I kind of latch on to. Is I love to see that quality. And so, back to your question, that was a long way of answering.
That's a great answer.
Is that I believe that the opportunity to make who's in the room better. And I had a coach who coached for the Bengals, Paul Alexander, who was an offensive line coach. He wrote a book called Performance. He was one of my college coaches. And in his book, he makes this comment. He says, as a coach, my job is to get rid of who you are. There was something in paraphrase in that comment, and is to replace you, is the quote. I'm here to replace you. And he says, I'm either here to make you a person that's better, that replaces who you are today, or to find someone to replace you. And I love that challenge. I love that challenge of, and great story about Paul Alexander. He performed with the Cincinnati Symphony. He's one of those coaches who coached me, who inspired me to understand that broad aperture of people and character and depth. And I think when you look at people that are that way motivated, those are truly the great people. And I believe my job is to replace every single person that's here. I'm part of making them better or finding the people that are going to make us better. And that's I believe in that mission, and we have people that are very hungry for that in our department today.
You mentioned you were a musician. What instrument did you play?
Violin.
Awesome.
I never played sports. You know that story, right? I didn't grow up never playing sports at all. I was senior year of high school. I was played with the Flint Youth Symphony, and grew up in played church pit, played in pit for Nutcracker, and my senior year of high school, I decided that I wanted to be a college football player. So it was played 5 games of high school football and walked on and had a great college career.
That's amazing.
So anybody can do it, right? So
that's amazing.
Yeah,
it's incredible. Moving a little bit forward, talking about the actual Ziggies, definitely an awards show atmosphere that we're trying to embrace. Talk about a little bit just your first impressions of, being familiar with, the Ziggies as a concept here. Yeah.
Well, I've done Ziggies. I mean, when I was at Austin P in Tennessee, we had a version of that. We were called the Governors, and so we had some sort of event, that was riding around that. At Arizona, we did a very similar event. As I've seen these different events that I've been a part of, one of the most important things that we do is truly celebrate. Take time to stop and celebrate. Championships are actually footnotes in many, many people's careers. It's not the greatest thing that's going to happen in your career as you win a championship. It's a footnote in your career. And generally, even great coaches like Nick Saban wins a national championship. What does he do all of a sudden? He puts it down and he goes, you know what? I got to focus on the next championship. So even it becomes even a further footnote in your life, because once you climb that hill, you want to climb the next one and the next one and the next one. So those become sort of like these little incremental moments in your life. What we have to do, we have a responsibility to stop and make sure our students that participated in those experiences and our coaches and our community really truly take time to celebrate. We had you think about, we had a women's indoor championship this year, 26 years since we won a championship. And you talk about culture change in a program, is that coach was doing everything right in building and developing those student athletes. And I saw that happening. I saw the influences. I saw how he was maturing. And so you start to build around that individual because he's got the perception of how to build. And you see that reach its maturity. Celebrate it. Make sure that we stop and recognize those student athletes, because while that may be a footnote in a long life and career, it's something you'll always point back to as a point of pride of doing something that in 26 years nobody could figure out how to do. Great point.
Yeah, something I think is very valiant as well is this year compared to last year, opening up to more community, I would say, and getting a lot more of the Bowling Green community involved. I think that's a very, very powerful thing for a lot of people, especially fans and Falcon Fanatics, to be able to go and celebrate with teams that they watched the entire year and saw them win championships.
Well, I mean, it's like when getting back to my mentors. You talk to Urban Meyer about how do you build a great football program. You talk to, I've worked with Brian Kelly, or I've seen throughout my career Butch Jones, or working with Tommy Lloyd or Sean Miller, all these great coaches that I've had a chance, or Jed Fish. Every great coach that I've ever been around starts to say, how do I build a village around this program? Because when times get tough, we do not have the resources, the brain power. We're not smart enough. We're not good enough to figure out all the problems. It's who you bring into your circle and you wrap yourself around that you can lean on. The mentors in your life, the people in the communities that have done it before, that can teach you, this is how you solve the problem. I always say I'm not the smartest man. I played college football. I played violin for more years than I played college football. Okay, so let's understand. I'm probably better at picking a conductor than a football coach. But it's like, one of those things that I know who to call. Yeah. I called Lane Kiffin. I called Mike Norvell I called Lance Leopold at Kansas. I called 25 sitting head coaches and sit there and said, how do you look at this decision and how do you judge? And it was interesting. Lane Kiffin, I'm sitting there having a conversation with him about football, and he breaks out predictive indexes on what do great football coaches look like, personalities, profiles. The person that's embedded in trying to understand the analytics around good decision making in people. Those are the people that you lean into to make great decisions. Jerry York with Dennis Williams. I can call Jerry or Wayne Wilson at RIT and sit there and talk about, what do they see in great coaches in hockey. So I've leaned into those individuals, and they've helped bring some really great people to this university.
For you, you mentioned the indoor track and field championship, which was just incredible. What have been your other favorite moments in athletics this year? I mean, for us personally in the room, Ben's a big hockey guy. Dennis Williams getting the first playoff series win in quite a couple years for the hockey program was great. Right. I'm a big soccer guy, so defeating nationally ranked Western Michigan at home was great, and going all the way to the Missouri Valley Championship. Volleyball, I believe, had the record-breaking crowd at Stroh Center against Ohio State. What have been some of those other moments for you this year that you look back and you just look back on proud, and they've just been great moments?
Well, when I go through an interview for a head coach, you talk to everybody in the country. Talked about 30 or 40, some of them sitting head coaches. Everybody does an evaluation of your film for the year, and what everybody talked about was how we played against Penn State this last year, how we played against A&M. Yeah. You have two nationally ranked teams at that point, and even finished the year as nationally ranked, but took them, 6-7 point games. And, and then to hear, I talked to Elko at A&M. I was talking to him about coaches, and he's like, man, you guys were good. You guys had a great team, or Franklin. I talked to Franklin at Penn State. It's like you talk to these individuals, and there was nothing but respect for what our team was. And I love, I want to win. But one thing unfortunately, sometimes when you're a mid-major, you learn to appreciate and maybe even a greater nuance about what is winning is how you win. And watching our teams never quit, that striving factor is that against great opponents. In college, I got to play Michigan State University 2 years in a row. They were nationally ranked. It was right after they had won a title in 1989-90. I can't remember the year that Michigan State won. And we went in there at Central. I played for Central, and we went in there and beat them twice, 2 times in a row. And it was a defining moment in my life because I believe that it taught me one thing, that no matter what the challenge or the obstacle or the opponent, it's you have a chance if you have the right attitude, you're effectively prepared, and you're not fearful. You don't let fear drive your behavior when you walk into those big arenas. What I've seen in our football program is this fearlessness. What I think Scott Loeffler brought to this program was a fearlessness about competition. This last fall, Michigan State competing against Michigan State, a game that came into the second half and we had them against the wall, a fearlessness and coaches that sort of inspire athletes and people to be fearless about your opponents in life. Be fearless about you walk into a boardroom and somebody went to Princeton or Yale doesn't mean anything. Yeah. Really, it doesn't mean anything. It's who you are as a person, how you're prepared for that meeting. It's what you put into that process that will define and differentiate you through life. And I see that. Christian Stover, what a great year for Christian this year. I mean, in hockey, because here's an example of a guy that's just resilient. He's fought hard. I mean, I think he had a heck of another goalie that that he was going head to head with. Yeah, Cole, great goalie, and he had to fight. He had a battle. But he didn't he came back strong in December and really led us through January, February. I love, so there's the team stories, then there's those individual stories of just teams that are resilient and continue to battle. You're watching our baseball program right now, what we're doing. One of my favorite stories this year, I'm going to tell you, is softball.
Softball, oh my gosh.
I mean, I can't, it's like I sat through all these games last year where I think it was like run ruled. And I remember Brian Kelly, it was like 2006. We hired him at Central Michigan. I was in charge of football at Central. We bring in Brian Kelly, and the last year we won one game the entire year. The next year, all of a sudden, we're like, taking Boston College, to the end of the game. Yeah. We were losing, but we knew that culture had changed. And what you're seeing in our softball program is culture has changed. And I'm excited by that. I'm really excited by those experiences and what we're seeing in development of these programs. So.
Absolutely. Looking again kind of at, the awards themselves, how do you think that this year, might be different from previous years, or kind of looks to embrace that, making it about the athletes more? Yeah.
Actually, I'm trying to make it about the community more. Having you involved is a statement that we celebrate the athletes, but we're celebrating the people that are making this possible. They're helping to define the narrative, helping to enhance recruiting and tell the story of who and what we are. Last year we brought in our Falcon Fanatics and recognized them. We're going to bring them back this year. I want to do more things to tell the story of how we're winning championships, but we're winning because of the people that are choosing to be a part of it. I said, I want to raise banners, but when we raise those banners, it's all the people that are helping us build that story and that legacy and telling us who and what we are in this community. And I think that I want the Ziggies to continue to be at that celebration, making sure we capture those moments, but also looking around and saying it took a lot of us to get here. So.
Absolutely. And also different this year, you got some athletes emceeing, Jaden Frigerio and Finn Hogan. Yes. Touch on that a little bit. How do you think that's going to put a different spin on things?
And we had them in the show here actually this past Sunday too.
How'd they do?
They were great. Oh, they're great. They were great. They were so excited.
Yeah, that's good. I'm excited to see it. You get to see the personality of student athletes. Both of those individuals have, they have social media presences and people know who they are. I think that that's going to be, I think, adding the student athletes, getting them out of kind of what people see them in uniforms and kind of define them within their uniform and start talking about who they are as people. And I always enjoy this event because you get to see that personality. We see so many of these student athletes wearing uniforms around, and sometimes we forget that there are people, and getting them all together and walking around, and sometimes in suits and different outfits that I can't say it's always dress up, because sometimes I'm like, okay, well, that works. But it's getting to see them as people is really great, and great day to celebrate that.
Absolutely. And how important is it to you that, there's no other athletic events going on? I mean, it's really an opportunity for everybody to embrace all the positives going on with the athletics. I very rarely does that ever happen. I feel like it's, we're on 365 on events. There's always something that's going on. Once again, our student athletes, there's a start of the year, we come together, we have a start of the year kickoff meeting, and we have everybody there. And I feel like then it's like to the races. We all head in, different directions. And so I think closing this out and having everybody be a part of this is a great opportunity for us to celebrate. It's when I get up there, the thing I'm going to talk about is I'm going to start my opening conversation is you can take everything that happened, all these great stories and narratives, and my opening statement we'll be talking about women's track and field to start. For me, that is
that is the moment for me this year. That's what I'm most proud about, and it's like I'm so proud of what that team has done, and then we're all chasing that because I think as a team they did that, and I'm very proud of that this year.
And absolutely, I feel like that really speaks to what you were talking about too, because you look at Coach Snelling, and that's a coach who's been here a long time, going about things, the processes, the way that we really embrace here, and to finally see that, not that there's not a payoff even in seasons where you don't win, but to see that championship, I think really represents that well. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Volleyball championship out of the fall in the regular season, another great example of just consistent perseverance. Danielle Tomic moving on to Cincinnati, but it's she has a culture. Alex Del Piombo is going to maintain that culture of what has made that program great. That's why she ascended into that role, and very proud of that program coming out of the fall as well. But those two teams, and hopefully we get a couple more here as we close out. But I think it's 2 points of pride that we can really focus on this year.
Is there like a signature win that you remember from this year, like a victory? Obviously, outside of winning the MAC championship, that's kind of a given. Like a signature win for any of the sports that you remember.
Does something come to your mind, Ben?
I'm actually trying to think right now. I like that first game against Michigan Tech for hockey. I don't know if you were there, but the overtime winner with Quinn Emerson.
I was here. I was here. Yeah.
That was one of my favorite moments of the entire year. That was just so fun to complete a weekend series. First time winning at home in the playoffs since 2018-19. It was electric. That would probably be mine.
Yeah, I probably I'll say this. I think I have the men's and women's basketball wins against Toledo this year were pretty meaningful for me. Because I believe that and listen, football's win against Toledo was great. I just really enjoyed those two basketball wins this year. I felt like, I don't know, it may have been my greatest point of pride, because I think that basketball is such a difficult landscape right now.
Oh, my gosh.
It is such a challenging landscape. And I believe that, we are, I always say, I have to get better. I have to get better in how I support those programs to continue to build and be successful. And I play a part in that. Because it's not just, I believe we have two amazing coaches, but we have to be more creative. We have to be better entrepreneurs. But I believe that our coaches are taking those teams and competing at a high level and are putting us in position for success. So now I've got to do my job. But I think that we have two great programs that I'm excited about. And those two wins showed me that we had the right people and that we were doing the right things in those programs.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, as I said, I'm a big soccer guy. So, I mean, men's soccer beating, I think Western Michigan was number 14th ranked at the time. And that was...
I have to dig that one out. Hey, I was at the, I was in, where was the championship? I flew out to Missouri State.
From Missouri,
yeah. And there was a game that we played. I'm trying to remember the opponent. We played Drake. Yes. So we played Drake during the regular season. And I was talking, and Drake beat us during the regular season, or was it tie?
It was a tie.
Tie game. Yeah, I was at that game. And I came off and I said to Eric Nichols, I said, man, that's a really good team. I mean, physically much bigger than us. Yeah. I felt like they were just out physicaled us the entire game. So we played Drake, and when we beat Drake, that was another really big moment for me, because I said to Eric, I said, can we compete against a team like that? We tend to be smaller, quicker. It's just a completely different style of play. And Drake is just lumbering thunder. They're
a big team,
big physical team. So I think that win in the tournament was just one of those great games, and I really enjoyed that game. Even the semifinal game that they played. That they lost, championship game that they lost. Mm-hmm. It was like they played that game, and it came down to a couple injuries. We lose a couple guys, but we were so much in that game. We should have won that game, and so that little tournament there was. I really gained a lot of respect for our men's soccer program and the potential of it, because during the regular season, the win against Western, just over and over again, we've demonstrated that we have the capacity to compete at a very high level.
And we're in the storytelling business, and I'm pretty sure, because I called that game, that day we beat Western was a decade to the day the last time we beat Western Michigan.
Oh, really?
And that to me, I remember asking Eric about that post game, and he was just like, he was speechless. He was like, oh yeah, I don't know what to say. I mean, Western's always been a class program, and you get them in your home turf and you beat them. It's really incredible, and that goes to all the athletic programs.
I don't miss too much. If it's at home, I'll even go on the road. But if it's at home, I'm watching the games, and like I said, if we probably sat here for another hour, you could probably pull out about 10 other stories that I'm probably minimizing, but. We're just great games this year, and it's been exciting to be a part of it. The spirit, the competition, just how fearless our student athletes are. I love them. I love being around them.
I heard Harold Fan Jr. had a good season.
Yeah, we didn't talk about Harold, had we?
No.
I mean, my God. I mean, like you can't minimize that one. I mean, one of the greatest stories coming out of this year. And that shows you how many great stories we truly are having here at Bowling Green, because I think that it's another great moment where you can see someone that has shined. Has been given an opportunity that, and that's something that the unfortunate byproduct of the transfer portal is I think that there's going to be opportunities for people that they chase the wrong things, and they're not going to come to an environment where they can be put on a stage that nobody else is going to put them on the stage that we'll put them. And Harold was a great example of that. He stuck with us. He believed in us. He believed in the mission. And he's gonna get his deserve for being a person of character who really believed in the value set of what we have at Bowling Green.
I don't know how much you've kept track of it. Where do you think he's going to get drafted? Into which team, if you had to guess? We've probably talked about this question 15, 16 times. Maybe even.
And we've all said our personal favorite NFL teams that we followed because we're just fans.
Because we want them.
See, but here, you guys got to remember something here. I'm the violinist. If you want to talk about performances, sure. I told you I'm not the most competent person. You guys are much more qualified at this. Even a couple of the bleacher creatures. I was in the stands and we were talking about the team in the last couple of games. They lean over and they go, "Do you know the point total? If this and this and happens, we may qualify." And I'm like, just so you know, if you're going to ask for my opinion, I count you as much more qualified than I am as to this, how to map this out for the next 2 to 3 games. Yeah. So, anyway, that's what I love about you guys. You guys are the ones. You tell me,
we're the sports nerds. And
you guys call it. You want me to throw it? You guys call it then. Where we're going to go.
If you still play, you need to play the national anthem for something. If we ever host like a very big event, we have to get Derek Vandermeer to
all right.
play the national anthem.
All right.
That'd be cool.
Pick up a couple little lessons to refine.
There you go.
Where's Fanning go? Where do you guys go?
Oh man,
I think he goes to the Chiefs, and I think he goes like late second round.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
I'd say Ravens second round too. I think somewhere around there. But I at the end of the day, man, I hope he goes to a great franchise that's going to embrace him and use him, develop him right. So
reigning champs.
What'd you say?
I said reigning champs. I'm calling Eagles.
So you got to understand, I love the Ravens. It's not because I love the Ravens as a franchise. I love the quarterback. I love that team, and I think that Harold Fannin and that team, because everybody who touches the ball on that offense can score.
Oh yeah.
And you put one more piece in there that's dangerous, and that sort of like that quick kind of offense that that kind of that spread type offense, it's going to be dangerous. So that's a good call. I like the Ravens.
When we had Finn and Jane on too, Finn was he said on the air, I think, that everybody was knocking on him because he can't quote unquote run block. Yeah. He was saying how he could block anybody, NFL or not, like any defensive end he could block. So even that, adding, he's a freak of nature physically, and
he's a freak of nature.
He's a
very special kid.
Yes.
Too.
Yeah. There's always going to be those naysayers and stuff you can and can't do. But then, I mean, he's still young. I mean, he's going to develop into a man too when he gets in the NFL, and who knows how good he's going to be. So it's amazing.
I got to you get to know Rob Gronkowski when I was out at Arizona, and we had an event, and he walked in the door, and we were talking, and I'm like sitting there looking up, much like me and Eddie. Like, I played offensive line, and he played running back, and he looks like he can take me to the shed right now. So
Derek, how are we doing on time? We're at 12:45 right now.
Yeah, we're good. We're gonna. I guess we have to wrap up.
Well,
got to run to another meeting.
Well, Derek, but before we let you go again, just thank you again for your relentless and just passionate leadership at BWG Athletics. Thank you for letting Falcon Media and Falcon Media Sports Network be a part of the Ziggies once again. We're looking so much forward to covering the event. We've done a lot of pre stuff like this right now at Zig Zone. We're obviously covering the event. We've been blessed to present a couple awards as well, and have a moment on stage as well. So just really thank you for your partnership. Thank you for your leadership. It's changed all of our experiences. It's changed our lives here, from Steve Iwanek, who came before me, and Brandon Lowe, to now myself taking over this role as well. It's been truly great, and on behalf of all of us, we're so grateful.
Anything we can do to continue to support your experience here at Bowling Green, we have a responsibility to do that. I was a journalism major. in college, and the access and the experience that you can get in the learning environment that you can get being intricately involved in everything we do is critical, and I think it helps sharpen you and make you better. Love to be part of that experience and continue to support your success. So,
yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks so
Appreciate
much.
it. Thank you.